Hello and welcome back to Bourbon Barrel Talk. I'm your host, Scott Minton, and we are, this is episode 2 with Brian Gelfo. Only this time you are putting on a different hat because evidently you're like the hat man and you've got lots of hats and you are the brand advocate for Saga Spirits, a.k.a. / True Story.
Yeah, thanks for having me back, guys.
Man, no, thank you. We appreciate your time. So this is the most recent iteration of the Henderson family and what they've done since they sold the Angel's Envy brand. So some people may or may not know that. So if you don't mind, let's kind of tell that story, how it started, you know, that type of thing, and then how on earth did you get involved? I know you briefly touched on it in the previous episode we did with you with your own label. So let's just kind of go with there. Is that fair?
Absolutely, we can do that. So obviously everyone here is probably familiar with Angel's Envy. Angel's Envy was founded back in 2010 by Wes Henderson and his father, Lincoln. Lincoln was master distiller at Brown-Forman for many years, responsible for a lot of brands. They're household names now. But he had retired and was just going to live a happy retired life. And Wes, who had grown up around Brown-Forman with his dad and around the bourbon industry, decided he wanted to do something with his dad and forced his dad out of retirement. Forced is probably the wrong word. Coerced his dad out of retirement to create Angel's Envy. And what they were doing with Angel's Envy was a little unique at the time because nobody was really doing finished American whiskeys as a core product. They were doing was one-off releases here and there, but they wanted to do finished American whiskey, a finished bourbon, and eventually a finished rye on a consistent day-to-day basis. I've long told people that anybody can finish a whiskey once. Anybody can get hit lightning in the bottle and make a great finished whiskey from a barrel or even a batch. But to do it repetitively, over and over again, and have that same quality and consistency, they pioneered it. They pioneered the American finished whiskey category at Angel's Envy.
Yeah.
So Angel's Envy was took off. Angel's Envy is a household name, right? But people in the bourbon and whiskey industry here in the U.S. they know it. But they had sold the brand to Bacardi. The family stayed on working with the brand for a number of years. And then in 2022, Wes retired. And Wes and I and the family have been friends for a long time. Wes legitimately wanted to retire. He wanted to sit at his house in Florida and relax and watch the waves go by and watch TV and do that kind of thing. Well, Wes can't sit still very long. Wes likes to have a lot of things going on.
About how long did that last?
He likes to say several months. I think it took about 6 minutes. Okay? But, Wes is also the father of 6 boys. And the boys were kind of going, hey, Dad, how about something for us? Because, when Angels launched, only one of the boys was old enough to even work for the company. And by the time Angels was sold, by the time Wes retired, a few of the other boys had come along, but they weren't really part of the birth of the brand and the part of the saga. See how I use that there? To go through.
Very good.
So they coerced Wes out of retirement to do something. Now, Wes, he doesn't come out of retirement and just start a new bourbon brand. No, first he buys the Kentucky Castle, the famed Kentucky Castle in Versailles, and decides he's going to start there. Then he's going to start talking about doing a whiskey brand, a bourbon brand with his kids, and True Story was born. There's a little more story behind it with that, but this is the next iteration, the next chapter in the family of the Henderson whiskey legacy, where you have first generation being Lincoln at Brown-Forman, second generation being Wes, the founder of Angel's Envy, and now Wes and his boys, third generation, founding True Story Whiskeys.
When you say the Kentucky Castle, for those that have never been to that part of Kentucky, what is the Kentucky Castle?
It is an actual castle in Kentucky. The castle has a rich heritage. It goes back to the late 50s, early 60s, if I remember correctly. It's had a lot of different iterations over the years of what it was and what it was going to be. It's been event spaces. It's been different things. Most recently, prior to Wes and his group acquiring it, it's an operational hotel, restaurant, spa. There's a farm on site. I don't want to say petting zoo. You don't really go in and pet the goats, but they do have goats.
They have like a garden too. I think a garden area.
They have a
yoga.
Garden. Yeah, well, they were doing goat yoga for a while.
Oh my yes!
They did goat yoga for
there.
a while. They host a lavender festival, which is one of the biggest lavender festivals in the U.S. But it's a beautiful place. It's a small, you would consider a boutique hotel. There's 18 to 20 different rooms and things of that nature. An incredible farm-to-table restaurant, a spa out back. But it's just a really unique thing when people see it, because you're driving down the street and you're going through all these horse farms and all these beautiful fences and all these things, and all of a sudden there's a castle. You're like, what the heck is going on here?
Yeah, you see the walls and ramparts of a castle as you're driving down Versailles Road, and
Yes.
you're like going, "Oh, what the hell is that?" I
Yeah.
remember the first time I saw it, but I was like, "Wow."
Yeah, but what he thought was, hey, if I'm going to build a new iconic brand, why not launch it at a new iconic home?
No doubt.
So yeah, it's great. And people from the area, obviously, when you say it around here, maybe some of your listeners don't know, but people in the area, you say the Kentucky Castle, people know what it is.
Yes, 100%.
It's like a billionaire's lair.
I don't know.
He's not a billionaire.
I was about to say that's not billionaire money, but it's definitely, it was expensive. Like I told you, we were off air and we were kind of discussing the story a little bit, but I think Lee Majors owned that castle for 10 or 15 years.
So,
for the youngins, who's Lee Majors?
Wow. Like the $16 million man or whatever.
it was $1 million man back then.
if you adjust it for inflation.
I just knew he was a character and he was an actor. But anyway, yes, that's what he owned the castle. I want to say for like 10 or 15 years, if I remember correctly.
To
It's
do
just kinda a weird
what?
thing.
Well,
I think he lived there for a little bit.
I guarantee
Well,
Nick knows.
I-
Yes,
So my
he
family's
does.
my family is from Versailles. My grandmother used to own a house off Gormley Avenue, which is right in the middle of town there, and she was the local cleaning lady, and she cleaned commercial buildings, and she worked for Ike and Blackburn, or Blackburn and whatever.
okay, I thought you were about to say IKEA. I'm like, oh Jesus!
No.
I didn't know that.
No,
It's
he's not
something.
from
It's something.
Sweden or-
I can't remember the. I can't remember the first name, the last name of the other guy, but it's something in Blackburn. But it's like the only super well known funeral home in that area, and she cleaned their funeral home and their personal homes for years and years and years. So it's kind of weird.
So the history, because the funny thing was that I actually watched the video of it before I came on, because I was doing my homework for the podcast today, and it came up around what happened with the castle. And the castle was back in the late '60s. A horse owner had traveled over to England and was touring around England and saw all the castles. They go, "Oh crap! These are beautiful. We want these." And so in the late '60s, it started being built because he had the money. He started building it. It never actually got finished because it was about 5 or 6 years into it. It was about 72, 73, and the outside ramparts, the walls were all done, but the actual castle, the in the center, the home, never actually got finished. It lay dormant for I think about 20, 30 years until like the mid 80s, whenever he actually passed away. And then there was other offers during that time, those 10, 15, 20 years, people wanting to buy it, but he never agreed to any of the sales. So finally, whenever he passed away, it finally ended up gold sold. That's where I think whenever Lee Majors came into that, and then I think a few other random owners came in. And then it was around I think somebody came in and bought it, and they were doing renovations to turn it into a Airbnb or kind of like a hotel. And that was in 2015, during those renovations when that fire happened. That kind of like just almost destroyed
that
everything.
might have been the second
Sorry,
fire.
2005.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, 2005 sorry, I could correct myself. That was whenever that happened. And so then after that, it just kind of lay dormant then for a little while longer until I think it ran through a couple renovations, and then I think that's whenever finally, late, in 22, it finally...
Well, I know that the prior ownership group was a group of doctors out of the University of Kentucky that fixed it up, turned it into the operating hotel and restaurant and spa that it is now.
But it's such a bizarre story.
It is. It really is.
Only because I grew up looking at that castle. Like literally every third weekend of every single month, we drove to Versailles to my mom and grandma's house. We played basketball, hung out, and then we would drive over to Lexington to pick up my Aunt Dee Dee, and then we would come back, and we always took Versailles Road into Lexington, took a left on Man-O-War, went over to pick her up, all came back. Boom. I just, it's funny. It's weird. So...
Well, and it's funny because nobody other than Wes would go, I'm going to get back into the bourbon industry. I'm going to start off by buying a castle.
Right.
And spending how much money?
Yeah, it's probably
I do
undisclosed.
not know the sales
Listen,
price. I honestly don't.
He had to avoid capital gains from selling Angels.
Makes sense. It absolutely makes sense.
I mean, if you're going to spend money on a castle, you might as well be money that you don't want to be taxed on. Fair enough.
I had not looked at it that way. I'm gonna have to talk to him about that.
Right. I think it's referred to as a 1031 exchange.
Exactly right. 1031 corporate exchange, unless, depending on when he exactly bought it, it could have been part of the opportunity zone rehab facility drop where you could actually invest money in.
This is the financial guy.
I thought this was a bourbon podcast.
Yeah, well, right now it's turned into
Sorry, my bad.
finance.
I can nerd out about a lot of
Banker and
things.
the mortgage guy over here.
IT right here.
Oh, my God. Oh, they're high-fiving with their pocket protectors.
Crossing pins over here.
Hey now.
All right, so back to true story. Look, first of all, for one, is it moscatel cask?
Muscatel.
Muscatel. Is that kind of like a musketeer?
I don't think a musketeer would taste this good. So, you want to get right into the whiskeys? You want to start tasting this stuff and see what we
I think
got
we
here?
should
Is that
taste
where we
it,
should
talk
go?
about it, and then dive back into the story. I mean, I think the Henderson family story is fairly crazy intriguing. I mean, you kind of dove in on a little bit of it. You know how Lincoln was at Brown-Forman all those years. They started Angels Envy, but like you're right. Like the fact that they had the wherewithal and the thought process to like, and I even said it kind of off, Mike. You got to be crazy to just be like, oh, I'm just going to start making finished whiskey in a realm of that. And part of it, I would say, is Wes the greatest marketing guru of all time, because he took a product that was uniquely known for what it was known for. He put it in a beautiful bottle, a beautiful package, and then sold it to people, and it sold like hotcakes.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, he took Kentucky bourbon, rich in its tradition and heritage, and decided to finish it. And like I said, people weren't used to finished whiskey, especially being an everyday shelf type item, and just mastered it.
I mean, I would say that most people, period, just didn't see it. I mean, they were really kind of an innovator. I mean,
absolutely.
How many finished products did you see prior to Angels Envy?
No, they were only one-offs. When distillers would
Yeah.
do special releases here and there, it was
And they were so few and far between.
very few and far between.
And they sat on the shelves. I remember
Yes.
seeing a particular Cox's Creek distillery that released one that was finished in a beautiful brown box. And it sat there because it was one of the earlier $200 bottles that sat. I mean, gorgeous. Now, if you can find one of those, like they go for bonkers money.
Right.
Yeah.
Because people, they accept it now, and they're looking for something different than just your traditional, Kentucky bourbons and rye whiskeys and things of that nature. People have really adopted and fell in love with the Finnish category just because of the uniqueness.
Gotcha. So back to the Muscatel task.
Back to the Muscatel. So go ahead.
Oh, no, I was about to say, while you guys kind of start smelling, tasting, everything like that, I want to bring a certain attention to the bottle because it is a very, outside of the shape of the bottle, it's very unique. But this is one of the very few bottles that I have seen that is fully covered.
In bourbon.
Well, no, the outside cover.
No, but it's the first time you've seen a fully covered bottle in bourbon.
Oh,
and that's part of where I'm going with this is, yes. So for those of you listening, obviously you can't see the bottles. The bottles are six-sided, and the bourbon bottle is solid black. Our rye bottle is solid white. And there was a couple of reasons behind that. Wes and his family, when they were doing something, they wanted to be, let's say, disruptors. Angels Envy was a disruptor in the industry because they were doing a finished whiskey.
100%.
Let's disrupt again. So you walk into a bourbon aisle in any store, walk into any major liquor store, what do we all notice about the bourbon aisle? Everything looks the same. Clear glass bottle, brown liquid. Most of them the same kind of similar shape. Few unique shapes here and there, but nothing really extravagant. You don't see things in colored bottles.
Bourbons
Right.
are
Or at
one
least-
color,
or at least-
ryes are green labels. Yeah, there's not a whole lot of.
But the brown liquid in it, could have varying shades of brown. But it's all you're correct to that. It's all brown.
Absolutely. But they said, okay, let's do something different. You start looking at, tequilas, scotches, Irish whiskeys, even rums.
Yes.
They're doing them in solid colored bottles, sometimes ceramic bottles you can't see the liquid in. But everybody was so used to seeing bourbon and rye whiskeys in clear bottles where they could see the liquid that okay, it's going to be a shock to some people. And even now, when we're out promoting this, I'll have people come up to me and they'll say, well, I can't see the liquid inside. And I'll be like, why do you need to? And I've yet to have a good answer. And it's not combative with people. It's not anything like that. But most people are just like, well, just because I always can. Well, this is something different. I can go to the shelf and find you a dark brown bourbon, and it's going to be terrible. And I can find you a light one that looks like Gatorade, and it might taste great. The color of the liquid doesn't dictate the quality. Just like the age doesn't dictate the quality, the price doesn't dictate the quality. There's a lot of different factors.
You would hope it would, but it doesn't.
Exactly.
Oh, not at all.
It would mislead. We were worried that bartenders might have a problem with it because when they go to do inventory, they can't see the liquid inside. But we talked to some bartenders, and they're like, well, we have scales. We already have to weigh, tequila bottles and other bottles, and we weigh them to know how much liquid is left in them. It's no big deal for us. We're like, great, this is phenomenal. So we knew we had some acceptance going on there, and we did something a little different. So, yes, it's a solid black bottle. You can't see any liquid in it whatsoever. And it has a nice embossed True Story label on the front of the bottle. But it's what's in the bottle that sells. And I've always said this. A good-looking bottle will sell a whiskey once. You see a beautiful bottle on the shelf, oh, it's neat, I'm going to buy it. If the whiskey inside it's no good, you're not going to buy it again. That's what you have to focus on is the whiskey inside. And that's what the Henderson family is so good at, is focusing at the whiskey inside those bottles. The Angel's Envy bottle was disruptive. That round-shaped bottle with the angel's wings on the back, that was very unique. Now we're doing with this one, but the whiskey's phenomenal.
Refresh my memory because I'm not close enough to the bottles to see them. What's the proof on this bad boy?
90 proof on the bourbon.
90
So
proof.
this is a blend of Kentucky distillate from 2 different Kentucky distilleries, between 5 and 6 years old, aged in white muscatel barrels. So white muscatel is a fortified dessert wine from the Portugal region. So it's a little bit of sweetness, but not overpowering sweetness.
Yeah.
Hey, so is that a place that they traveled to where they enjoyed what it was, and they're like, let's put bourbon in there and see what it turns out?
No, they may have traveled to Portugal and tasted wines and things from different barrels, but a big part of this is, throughout their years with Angel's Envy, obviously, they did the port finishes, they did the Caribbean rum finishes, but they had all kinds of special releases and other types of stuff. They were experimenting with different barrels. I think this is just one of those that the family had experimented with, that they enjoyed, that just never was done at Angel's Envy, so it was something they could make their own.
I also wonder if it harkens to the fact of you get a lot of people that use sherry barrels, and sherry is a fortified wine.
That's quite possible. The fortified wines, I think they have that sweetness factor that cuts down the burn that some people might get from bourbon and make them a lot more approachable. But it's also something where it's not overpowering, so they are great to use in cocktails and different things like that. And that's what the family was really going for. This was truly a family affair. They sat around the kitchen table at Wes's house, him and his boys, tasting this whiskey and going back and forth with different barrel finishes and figuring out what they wanted to go with and what they wanted to use as their core products.
And they are quite light on the color side, but they definitely have a full flavor. It's got that little, almost like a citrusy note on the mid palate, but it's got all the other things that you would typically think of when you get a bourbon with a little bit of a finished product to it.
Now, one thing I noticed is, without going into any flavors or anything along those lines, it is very smooth on the finish.
Oh, 100%.
It's very easy. It's an easy drinker.
Yeah, it's not one of those ones that give you that long, big hug down all the way into your chest area, but it really makes you want to come back and have some more because of how great it tasted when you had it in your mouth.
Yeah, this is it's like a fruit salad with no dark fruits. It is.
Oh,
yeah, like grape, pineapple, like.
Dude, yeah,
even though you can't taste pineapple, it's just you're right, like that lighter.
I think more of like a pear.
Yeah,
in
orange
there.
pears,
pear, lemon, orange.
absolutely.
Like those little mandarin oranges.
Yeah, but there's also no typical what you get in bourbon, like vanilla or caramel. It doesn't have that.
It doesn't have that.
It's very
It's crisp.
yes, ding ding ding.
Crisp.
That's a good.
Oh,
Crisp
right,
is a good word.
It really. It is. It's crisp.
that's-
It's almost cider-esque. Like I can only imagine if you distilled cider, it kind of would be in that realm.
Have you guys ever had pear cider?
Yeah.
Mr. Wider's pear cider?
Yeah, that's not the one I would pick if I was going to take a cider.
Oh,
But
here we go. Next, we'll talk about pickles and his family and this and that.
no, what about
Pickle cider?
Well, no. I don't know that you want pickled cider. It sounds weird. I think if I was going to pick a pear cider, I would probably go with Ace. I think Ace does the pear cider probably better than anybody else, other than some of the European varieties. Man, it is motorcycle heaven running out here tonight.
That it is.
So one other thing I do want to bring up on the bottle is that there seems to be a moniker on the bottle. Do you want to talk about that?
I'm sure you're referring to pull up a chair
Yep.
on the back of the bottle. Well, a couple things. One, the name True Story. How many times you sitting around, like the four of us are sitting around talking, we're drinking, having a good time, and somebody reaches over and looks at you and goes, "Hey, True Story." Now, usually when somebody says that, they may be embellishing on something. It may
absolutely.
be completely BS, or it may be something that is really true, and they just know you're not going to believe them, so they're trying to qualify it ahead of time.
Yep.
But it's a conversation starter. The term true story, the name true story is a conversation starter. But another big part about it is, what do we like to do with our whiskeys? We were having a little conversation about this earlier, Brian, is we like to share whiskey with friends. Sometimes we won't even open bottles of new bourbon or
That's
whiskeys.
the best thing about it.
Because we want to share it. What better way to share than sitting around a table and you see somebody, hey, come on, pull up a chair and have a whiskey with me.
Absolutely.
That's where it came from.
Yeah.
Sharing it with family or friends or loved ones. And the Hendersons are a big family. It's Wes and 6 boys and grandkids and daughters-in-laws. It's nuts.
It's a full house.
They want to share. It's definitely a full. It's like full 3 houses. It's huge.
Is there an Uncle Jesse?
Yeah.
Well, I'm about to say, I saw a picture when I was doing the video of all like Wes and then his boys, and I was like, there's like a lineup of around 9 to 10.
Yeah, it's crazy. Sometimes they refer to me as Uncle Brian, but I'm like that uncle you don't want to invite to family functions because he's going to say or do the wrong thing.
Yeah.
But it's good.
That's me too.
A funkle.
Funkle.
Funkle's a good word.
Yes.
Funkle's a good word. I hope they don't listen to this and start calling me Funkle Brian, but it's a good word.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's definitely it's unique. It's not, and like I said, I like it actually. I mean, the more I drink it, the more I like it. Like,
I'll agree with that.
But it's so weird. It's just such a different flavor profile because of that muscatel.
Yes.
And
It's also not overly sweet. It's not overpowering sweet.
No, it mellows it out, and like I said, it gives it a crispness to it that like you just don't expect out of a 90 proof bourbon.
It's a little weird, like trying to describe the finish. It's like you feel it on the front, you taste it on the front palate, you taste it mid palate. It starts leaving the back of the palate, but then, as you said, it doesn't have like that Kentucky hug. But every now and then, when you go, you get a little reiteration of those flavors. Whenever you lap the lips,
It sticks around in the mouth. Mm-hmm. And I realize some of these things, the way I'm saying them, sound terrible.
Nope. You fit right in. You fit right in.
Sounds like a totally different broadcast.
No, not at all.
Hello, ladies.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. All right, now we're going to the rye.
Okay.
Let's dive in deep here. Now, listen, I'm not going to lie. This scares me a little bit.
The rye is...
For one, it's amburana and sherry, correct? Did I read that right?
There's 3.
There's 3 total. Well,
Okay.
but he's kind of right because it's 2 sherries.
Okay.
Right.
So, yeah, the amburana's, or the rye is a little different because we are finishing it in 3 different barrels. We're using amburana, which is a Brazilian hardwood. Sometimes people refer to it as Brazilian oak, even though it's not an oak tree.
Right.
And those are barrels that have never been used for anything before. It's just Brazilian amburana barrels.
Are they toasted? Are they charred? Or
Not
are they just
usually.
left like bare
No,
wood?
they're bare wood.
Wow.
Yeah.
They're bare
Okay.
wood.
Yeah.
All right.
Cinnamon Toast Crunch barrels. But go ahead.
So then we also use Pedro Jimenez sherry casks and Oloroso sherry casks. We finish in those separately. So the same rye whiskey goes into those 3 separate barrels.
Pedro
We finish
who?
it separately. Pedro Jimenez.
Jimenez.
PX. And then we blend them together at the end for the flavor profile that we're looking for and what you're tasting here today.
Why didn't you just say PX sherry?
Because I like to say Pedro Jimenez.
Because he can do.
He was taught that.
Yes.
I'm from Miami. I can say Pedro Jimenez.
Oh.
Jimenez.
So is this proof down before it goes into those barrels, or is it proof down after?
It is proof down after as well.
All right.
Proof down after as well. And the family did a lot of research as to where they wanted to go with it. That's why the rye whiskey is at 100 proof. The bourbon is at 90, which I really appreciate because I personally think rye whiskey should not be bottled at less than 100 proof.
Right.
Just as a personal preference, and but it just really works with this.
So I tell people often, and I've done a lot of tastings with a lot of people, amburana is one of those things that you either love it or you hate it. Very few people do I find that are like, oh, that's not too bad. Like,
there's one aisle or the other.
yes,
Amburana is
typically.
very powerful. It can
Yes.
be very overpowering. There were some earlier iterations and stuff that the family was working with that I didn't work with them on those, but I had the opportunity to taste them.
Right.
And they had used some stuff that was in Amburana for almost a year. And it was literally like somebody smacking you upside the head with a stave from an Amburana barrel. But luckily the family got together and everybody talked about it, and they wanted to make something a little softer, a little more gentle, but still keep that bold flavors you get from Amburana. And you said Cinnamon Toast Crunch and other things, and we've talked about this before. I don't like to give tasting notes, but Amburana has distinct tasting notes that most people get. And most people get that cinnamon toast crunch, that baking spices, that apple pie spices, the holidays and fall. They get that out of amburana.
Yeah, about to say one of the things that we've talked about with this, because we've reviewed other amburannas before in the past, is it's either people know it as cinnamon toast crunch or locally snickerdoodles.
Okay, snickerdoodle's a good one.
Yep. The funny thing is, and I've talked to a lot of people, they call it cigar batch, and it's not at all cigar batch, which is annoying.
I don't understand how it ever became known as a cigar batch.
I think because they think that it would go well with a cigar. That's the only thing I can come up with.
I will say that we do have a select group of people that have tried it, through all the stuff we've been going out the last couple months, and they pick up more of the pepper and leathery tones from the rye whiskey in it that you can get from amburana, and I can see if somebody tried to tie that with cigars. But traditionally, I wouldn't see this as something to enjoy with a cigar. I'm not saying you couldn't, but it's the sweetness and the spiciness of the baking spices and all that. To me, that's going to take away from your cigar. So why would you want to do that?
Right.
I could see like your acids or some of your sweeter cigars.
Maybe the flavored cigars.
Yeah, like you're more like I could be like, oh yeah, I could see where it would be married into that. But I'm like you. I don't understand why people call them cigar batches. I just don't.
A couple companies put them out, and it just got that reputation.
I know it sells.
Marketing, right?
Yeah,
marketing's everything.
Just like double oaked, it sells.
True. Which is funny because these are all double oaked. My other brand is all double oaked, but we don't label it as double oaked.
Right.
I don't see it anywhere on there.
It's
we never put that. It's finished. Because it was good whiskey to start with. We just finished it and made it better.
So the amount of time that it was in the amburana barrel, and then the share. So was it aged?
Pedro Jimenez.
All right. I can roll the R's.
Oloroso.
Yeah, Oloroso. Yeah, so how much time was spent in each of the barrels?
So it is going to vary. So being the first batch that was produced, these were anywhere from 3 to 4 or 5 months in the various barrels. Now we will reuse those barrels. So it's gonna vary. We're gonna reuse barrels. We're gonna introduce new barrels, go back and forth. So it's going to be anywhere from 3 months. I would say the amburana, and this is just a guess on my part because it's all going to be done by flavor and profile, right? That everybody has to agree on, and this is where we want to go. But I would say 3 to 12 months in the barrels. Now, you're not going to put it 12 months in a new use amburana barrel because it's going to be overpowering. But if it's the second or third use on it, you can leave it in there a little longer to get some flavor out of it. And it's going to be very similar with the Oloroso and Pedro Jimenez sherry casks. The newer the barrel, the less it's going to have to spend in there to get the flavors you want. Second or third use, it's going to take a little longer.
I imagine you have to keep your eye on it very carefully.
You do. I mean, you have to taste them pretty regularly. It's a tough job. The boys, Connor and Christian and the others working the production facility, they've got to taste whiskey pretty frequently. It's a terrible job.
That's horrible.
Horrible.
So we have Connor.
Don't
Christian,
call me for that.
But all right, so there are 6 boys in the family.
There are 6 boys. 4 of them are currently actively working in the facilities.
And then, so
does he have any daughters at all, or is he just six boys?
6 boys, and it was finally his oldest boy, Kyle, gave him a granddaughter.
Gotcha.
And there's been more granddaughters since, but he gave him the first granddaughter. He's got 9 grandkids now. So, like I said, family functions are ridiculous.
Yeah, fair enough.
That's why he needs a castle. He needs that much room for everybody.
But so the cinnamon just screams at me. Like it just gives me so much, especially on the nose.
Yeah. What do you guys get when you're tasting it? What are you getting out of it?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I'm getting that more of a traditional amburana. I don't know that I'm picking up the sherry, but there is a weird, different sweetness than I would typically get, and I wonder if that's where the sherry's coming from.
About to say, I'm on my 4th or 5th pull on this, and it's kind of segued. I still get the kind of like a cinnamon kind of in this background, but the kind of almost plum dark fruit is kind of like hinting in periodically, on the palate.
It really helps with the balance of the whiskey. Again, you guys have just said, you've had amburana finished stuff, and it can be overpowering. So you find a way to make it, a little more approachable to a wider array of folks. Using those 2 different sherry casks just really kind of mellows it out and adds a little bit of a different type of sweetness to it that just makes it delectable. It's amazing in a cocktail. Absolutely amazing in an old fashioned.
And listen, this is me talking out of my butt. I would really like to see this somehow, some weird iteration, the amburana that was maybe secondary finished or blended with the rum.
Interesting. I don't think we've talked about any rum finishes currently. Or are you talking about a rum finish in amburana?
No. Like if you you could even do that. Like take a rum, put it in a amburana barrel, and then put the whiskey in the amburana barrel after the rum's been in it. I mean, I think you would get up complexity from both of them, but I'm saying you might even be able to blend like the rum barrels, and I don't know,
almost like a cinnamon to sugarcane segue.
Yeah,
are you talking
like
about
something?
that?
Yeah, something to give it just because there's a certain amount of sweetness that I think maybe it would help bring down that like cinnamon flavor a little bit.
I can bring that to R&D and take full credit for that idea. Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's not recorded. We will not delete this from the podcast.
We just want a bottle later when it happens.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to be one of the first people to try it. That's all I care about.
So one of the things that the Nick's much better half does, she likes to add a little bit of water to things, the smallest amount, just to see what happens.
Did you?
Smart woman.
I did.
Well,
See, get in there.
Jesus.
No, the smallest amount to the. It's not ambriana. I can mispronounce things all on my own. Amburana. So I mix mizarana and amburana. I mix them all the time.
Two totally different continents.
Oh, yeah. I'm a mutt. Yeah, so it's totally acceptable.
One's an N, one's an R. So go figure. They look the same in cursive, similar. Sort of, kind of.
All right. So what
one's
exactly
Japanese, one's Brazilian. I'm just saying.
Hey, and what is cursive? The youngins have they're not
no clue.
My kids know cursive, but my kids are 21 and 19.
Say mine look. I'm about to say I feel for them if any of them ever have to sign a check or be able to read.
They just put an X.
Yeah, I know. Seriously.
So it really does take down the cinnamon, like on the nose, especially,
and the rye rises.
Well, I'm getting ready to try that.
Okay.
Hey, so
I'm just going nose alone.
So have you all done
What she
any
said.
cocktail competitions to see what people can do with these?
We haven't done any competitions yet. You got to figure we've only been on the market since October 10th. So we've only been on the market for 8 weeks. So we haven't hosted any competitions yet. We will. We've been talking about it. But one thing we did when we were doing our launch week activities and doing various things around the state is the partners we were working with, we were saying, okay, look, make an old-fashioned out of one of the spirits. You choose whichever one you want, and then a cocktail of your choice out of the second one. And we had some very unique stuff. There's a place here in town where we did a little launch party at, and the young lady, Miriam, I go there, and she goes, Brian, this is the cocktail I made. And it was her spoof on an old-fashioned. And she used the rye whiskey, but instead of using simple syrup, she used a banana liqueur. So she did a banana liqueur, old-fashioned, garnished it with a fresh banana and ground cinnamon.
Listen, I'm not hating that at all, the thought process of that.
It was like drinking bananas Foster. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And she was worried about it when she gave it to me. She's like, if it's no good, tell me, and I won't make those the rest of the night. And I'm like, you're going to make these all night long, and everybody's going to love them. And they did.
Hey, so why are mixologists? They're one extreme or the other?
You're insulting these people. Call them alchemists.
Sorry. Well, all right. No, hey, so they either have all the confidence in the world, or they're incredibly sensitive and they're worried about what you're going to feel about it.
Yes.
And she sounds like she was concerned about it.
Because she cares.
Oh.
That's what I'm saying. She cared about what she was
I get
making,
that.
so she didn't want to serve something that she didn't think everybody was going to enjoy that
That's
evening.
awesome.
And it was delicious. But we are working on a program going forward. We realize that what's the number one selling whiskey drink? The old fashioned. I mean, that's nationally that's the number one selling whiskey drink,
as it should be.
So we're doing something a little different. It's particularly we're kind of going with more of the bourbon that you tried first. We're trying to give some creativity and do some things around a bourbon smash.
So
okay,
I'm gonna throw a suggestion because this is one of my wife's cocktails.
Oh God!
Take this rye, mix it with a chocolate liqueur or possibly some type of Bailey's or Kahlua. Then edge the glass with graham crackers. Toast a marshmallow on a toothpick. Top it
As a drink?
as
Yes.
a drink, as a cocktail.
As a dessert, but
As
yes.
a dessert drink, yes.
All right.
Is that like a drunken Boy Scout?
No,
So-
it's kind of like a Well, I mean, it's s'more. I mean, it's really the only thing you can come up with. It's
it'll be s'more or like almost like a chocolate snickerdoodle.
I don't want to misstate anything, but I'd have to look back at some of the recipes that were done our launch week, and I think Jeff Ruby's here in town did something very similar. That they did have toasted marshmallow and graham cracker involved in their cocktail that they made.
Yeah, that was absolutely delicious.
One thing about sitting here and talking about whiskey with you guys, we keep on referencing food and crackers and snacks, and it just makes a person hungry. I'm just saying.
You're listening.
Hey, White Castle's is 6 minutes down that way.
Oh no,
That's a cleansing. You don't want to do a cleansing.
There's some healthy boys at this table. That's all I'm saying.
Fast food colonoscopy right there. Don't need that.
I will say that the drop of water, I'm not too sure I don't prefer it with a drop.
But see, that's the great thing. We've talked before that there's no right or wrong way to drink your whiskey, no right or wrong way to drink your bourbon, and that's it. Try it. Let it open up. Try it a little bit neat. I always say try something neat first, but then add a little bit of water. Maybe add an ice cube. One thing I like to do is I actually like to keep chilled glasses in my freezer, just like you would a beer, and put your whiskey in it. So you're getting it chilled without adding anything to it.
Yep.
Yeah. We have a bunch of the metal or stones.
Yes.
We keep in the freezer. So yes, same concept. Chill it without adding the water to it. Yeah. It's amazing some of the differences that happen in it.
You got to be careful with the stones, though. I have made the mistake of dropping a stone into a Glencairn.
Oh no!
Oops.
It's slide, not drop.
But yeah, I feel like that the cinnamon is not quite as pronounced. The rye pops a little bit more. And that's the only reason I said I think it might be, I think it's more approachable for somebody that maybe doesn't like amburana with just a drop of water.
Yeah, I mean, we've been happily surprised with the response to the rye. I mean, we knew people were going to like it, right? I mean, they had done the Angel's Envy rye, which is finished in the Caribbean rum cask, so they already had a bold rye out there, and they knew coming into this one that it was going to be something bold and not necessarily for everyone. We're surprised at how many people actually enjoy it. And I love when I'm doing tastings at different things, whether it's a liquor store or whatever, and people come up and they go, I don't like rye, I'll try the bourbon. So I pour them the rye first. Almost all the time when somebody tells me they don't want it. Tonight alone, I did a tasting earlier. I'll bet I sold a half a dozen bottles of rye for people who said they don't drink rye after tasting this.
Yeah.
Hey, and I'll say this: so the bottle itself, it looks like it belongs on a bookshelf. The way that it is, it's
classy.
Well, classy. Unassuming is the wrong word in that it looks classy, but it's the whiskey that's inside of it. It's bold. I mean, it completely makes a statement.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing all of you here would say that, if you saw this in a store, you probably would have picked it up when you saw it. The price points are right, but it's the whiskey inside that makes you buy it the second time.
Absolutely. That comes back for the second, third, and fourth buy.
Yeah, I mean, as somebody that, I know amburana can be really, really hit and miss, I probably would pick up both bottles. I would buy the bourbon, and then I'd be like, man, I'm going to have to try the rye before I spend my money on it. And then I would probably try the rye, and I'd be like, not bad, let's go. So I think that's the way things look. But I love the presentation. The colors threw me off at first, but then I started thinking about it, and I was like, you know what? You're kind of right by the way you explained it. You don't necessarily need to color.
You don't need to see the whiskey.
You don't.
Right.
It's just it's what you're programmed to think, right?
Yeah.
Well, and earlier we talked about how traditionally bourbon is whatever. Black is a popular color for bourbon, not the bottle, but the labeling and things.
It's either a round or square.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
and rye,
typical.
which I've yet to come up with a good answer. I honestly don't know. I've been doing this for a long time. I don't know why green became the color for rye whiskey. I have no idea. I've heard different theories, different stories, but green became the color.
Mine's just a theory.
And it was...
It's earthy.
What's the theory?
It's earthy.
Okay, I can see that.
Rye is an earthier flavor, so therefore you give it a green color.
But that was one of the things from the very beginning, because the black bourbon bottle was decided pretty quickly, and then they were experimenting and looking at other colors for the rye whiskey, knowing they didn't want to do green. Like we almost, we looked at a garnet bottle, we looked at some different colors, and the family had talked about it, and the team working on this had talked about it, and it really comes down to something very simple. True stories are told in black and white.
So, okay, that's a great segue, because I was about to say, all right, so basically each bottle is an inverse color of the other.
Correct.
What happens with the third bottle?
You'll find out in 2025.
All right.
What month?
I can't say.
Can you say what the third color is going to be?
I cannot.
Brian, what good are you?
apparently at this point I'm worthless.
Oh,
I'm surprised you guys haven't kicked me out yet.
no, hey, you brought us phenomenal whiskey.
We like to say bull with titties where I'm from. As worthless as a bull with titties.
From these two whiskeys, you can tell that the Henderson family is creative and bold, right?
Yep.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it permeates from, the creation of Angel's Envy to the creation of this. That, they're stepping into a different game, especially with the bottle, the style of the bottle.
The next one's mezcal.
Future, it is not. I can tell you it is not. Future expressions will not disappoint. That I can promise.
And I also appreciate that the name Henderson wasn't used in the bottles to try and use the last name to promote the whiskey. I love the fact that it's like, so my kids like they love. It's not on the front of it.
Okay.
Yep. And even the previous brand, it still says from the cellar.
From the cellar of Lincoln Henderson, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, like that's awesome. Like my kids know that. Like when I make a point, I'm like, true story. They're like, true story. It's like they know that like they've been had. They cannot go out of bounds with it.
Right. I mean that's what it's about. I mean, everything we do in life is a true story, right? It's you mentioned the tagline of pull up a chair, but another one we say life is a true story. Life is the truest story we all know. Our lives are our true stories. We might not like them all the time. Other people might not like them either, but it's true.
Some people embellish them.
Exactly.
Never in this world, never in this industry. There's no
embellishments in the bourbon world?
No, yeah, there is no history that is
I've never been on a lake and the fish jumped in the boat. Never happened.
The Illinois River, the Asian carp, they do it. I'm just saying, Fox River too. They're everywhere.
Listen, I've seen the YouTube videos.
It's real. It is.
I know. I didn't say it wasn't.
It's all AI. It's all fake.
AI.
What can you believe anymore with the growth of AI?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I can believe what I actually see with my own eyes in person and what I taste. That's about it.
Amen.
So
no, don't bring us to an end. Go back and smell the very first pour. Oh, Nikki's gone.
pouring my.
You're both gone.
Sniffing my empty glass.
Look at this, because I felt it before you did it.
I'm guessing you gentlemen enjoyed the whiskey.
It's gone. Of course it is.
Hey, the sweetness, it's so approachable. The
tobacco really comes out. Wow,
Yeah, I'm about to say, I'll pass this over. This is the first one, just empty. But yeah, it's almost like a really sweet, nice tobacco leftover smell.
Hey, and
That is nice.
The nose is not 90 proof. So many 90 proof whiskeys that are out there. Once the glass is empty, the glass is done. So that's kudos to
the viscosity is
yes,
remaining.
Yep. I was going to see it. Henderson's kill it again.
Yeah, can't give them enough credit. It's so exciting to be working on this with them and doing this brand and the growth we're going to see in the next year. It's just so very exciting. Having the sons involved with it, it's just it's amazing to watch the whole family dynamic. Everybody really gung ho. Everybody really excited. You can't ask for anything more than that. I mean, bourbon is Americana. The family is Americana. You just got to love it.
Hey, did you all really sell out before October rolled around?
You mean sell out what we were producing?
Yeah.
So we were literally bottling the first October release in October. That's how down to the wire this got. I mean, we launched on October 10th, and I think the distributor picked up product on October 5th.
Wow.
Yeah. Ooh. Yeah. And we did sell out a product. We had to. We're not on allocation. You can find it all throughout Kentucky and Tennessee. But for the first couple of weeks, we had to make sure that we're doing an event here, an event there. We need to make sure they have product first before we let everybody just go gung ho on it. But no, we are our production facility is fully up and running in Frankfort. We're doing all our secondary aging and bottling ourselves. We're not doing any of that on a contract basis. And we are caught up and we are ready to roll out.
So for any of the listeners to find these, relatively quick, where are the easy places? Like, say, we're local to Louisville. Where are some of the easy places to find them right now?
So local Louisville, you'll find it in a lot of the small little independent stores as well as the liquor barns and Total Wines. That's growing on a daily basis. People outside of the Kentucky or the Tennessee areas, they can actually purchase it direct on the True Story Whiskey website, truestorywhiskey.com. Have it shipped directly to their door.
So you have full distribution in all 50 states?
It's not all 50 states the way
Like 47 or something.
The way it's a little less than that, but not too bad.
I know there's weird laws.
The laws of where you're allowed to ship liquor to.
Yeah. But we are, we have a bold rollout plan for next year. We're going to be opening, I believe, in at least 10 states next year. So it's going to be good. It's going to be quick. But we have the team put together to do it, and we're excited.
If people have questions, comments, or concerns, how do they get in touch with you guys?
The best way to get in touch is through the website. It is truestorywhiskey.com. There's a contact us availability on there. Heck, I don't even mind if people contact me directly. I'm B Gelfo, BGELFO at sagaspirits.com.
There you go. Well, I think that's our episode of Bourbon Barrel Talk. If you want to find us, you can find us on Facebook, the Instagram, or the X. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. That way you get our episodes as soon as they drop on Sunday morning. What's your favorite medium, Brian? What do you listen to our podcast on, man?
The Facebook.
The Facebook?
I know you're not. All right, so it's posted there on the website. Then I follow the link, and then I share it. Love it.
There you go.
Dude, 53, and it's my age bracket.
There you go. Simple and easy. You don't have to go look for someplace else, right? Fair enough.
Apple Podcast here.
Apple Podcast.
Frickin' IT guys.
I know. IT guys, whatever. Anyway, that's our episode. Thank you guys so much. Thanks again, Brian. This is the Bourbon Barrel Talk crew. Peace out.
To infinity.